apologies for absence. Well, we couldn't fit anyone else in, so I guess that I can say safely that, no apologies for absence. That's item number 1. Declarations of interest. Is there anyone that has any declarations for tonight's topics? No, I wasn't expecting anything either. So that is actually item number 2 dealt with very quickly. So then we go on to the formality of the minutes of the previous meeting, which you all have a copy of. Has everyone had a chance to read it? Is everyone in agreement that it is a true record?
Taking as read, no comments on content.
Yeah, so we need
we don't need to vote on it. We've taken as read.
It's taken as okay. That's lovely. Thank you. So that's item number 3, swiftly dealt with. On to item number 4, the finance report. We have here the report for the end of May balances made during May and the receipts for the first 2 months of the financial year compared with the preset budget. Does anyone have anything that they would like to query on that? There's rather a lot of content, so I don't know if you've had a chance to look to see if there's anything that you would like clarified by the town clerk. Everyone's happy with that? So would someone like to propose? Yes, right. That's Councillor Warren. And a seconder, please. Councillor Cooper. Thank you. And swiftly on to the internal audit report, item number 5. So the purpose of this report is to ask members to consider and agree the report of the Town Council's internal auditor on the financial year 21-22 and appoint its internal auditor for 22-23. So the recommendations are that the auditor's report be accepted and that Gareth Hughes be thanked for his thorough preparation of it, and Gareth Hughes be appointed as the Town Council's internal auditor for 22-23. This is going rather well. If everyone's happy with that, can I have a proposer, please?
I'll propose it, please.
Councillor Toogood. Seconder, Councillor Watkins. Thank you so much. That's item number 5 dealt with. Item number 6, annual returns, the governance. So the purpose of this report is to seek the Town Council's agreement to, in respect of section 1 of the annual governance and accountability return for the financial year 21-22 and to authorise the Mayor to sign it accordingly. So the recommendation being that the Town Council is recommended to resolve that the Town Council approve section 1 of the annual governance statement as attached to the report 47/22 included in the papers for this meeting and authorises its mayor to sign section 1 accordingly. Very formal, but I don't think anyone wants to ask any questions or challenge that at all. In which case, can we have a proposer, please?
I'll propose that, sir, for your signature.
Thank you, Councillor Cockett. And a seconder, please? And Councillor Cooper. Right, some more accounting type work here on item number 7, the annual return for accounting statements. So the purpose of this report is to request that the Town Council's approval in respect to section 2 of the annual governance and accountability return for the financial year and to authorise the Mayor to sign it accordingly. So the recommendations are item number 3, if you want to check it, is the Town Council is recommended to resolve that the Town Council 1 approves the accounting statements 21-22 in section 2 of the annual governance and accountability return attached to report 48/22 for this meeting. And number 2 is authorises its mayor to sign section 2 accordingly. And number 3 asks the town clerk to submit the completed return together with the required additional papers identified in section 4 of this report in advance of the 30th of June 22 deadline. So does someone want to, wow, yes.
Glazed look on everybody's face.
Yes, I'm glad I've got the right glasses on this evening, I really am. Someone want to propose that? Thank you, Councillor Lucas. And a seconder, please. Councillor Warren. So, coming out of accounting and things about accounting, we now are going to something that we will need to have a discussion on. We need to talk about glyphosate and its use in Ventnor. I would like to just point out before we start this discussion that it has come up twice before, in March and April, and there have been quite a lot of investigations done. I think it's been quite thorough. I think a lot of people feel very passionate about this, so I hope that we can have a meaningful, useful discussion to come out with the correct result for the town. So the purpose of this report is to ask members to decide on the use of glyphosate in the town council's ground maintenance contract. So who would like to open up the discussion on this, please?
I'm happy to.
Thank you.
That's fine. I have a fair bit to say about this, having been involved with the story for quite a few years, really. I think the context is quite important to know that we know that glyphosate is bad. We know it's bad for humans. It's been judged to be probably carcinogenic, which almost certainly means definitely carcinogenic. However, to caveat that, those cases where it has been proven to be carcinogenic it's been with agricultural workers in the United States, people who are exposed to this a great deal. But we do know for sure that it's bad for insects. If nothing else, it destroys their habitats. And as everybody is very, very well aware, we do need to be moving in a direction where insects have more and more habitat. There's also a great deal of public feeling about, a very strong public feeling on this topic. On the subject of context, though, we should also note that certainly 90-something% of the use of this chemical is in agriculture. And also people are very, very, very welcome and they're free to go out and use it in their gardens. They're still selling it in Hearst, Morrison's, Tesco's, absolutely everywhere. So people can go and buy this stuff. I see what we have already agreed is to phase out the chemical for all its real non-essential uses. And looking back for the last resolution, it was only the question mark is still over the use in the ornamental areas. So really, that's what we're focusing on here. Looking at the cost implications in section 2 on A, B, and C, I really don't have a problem with the cost implications there, which would mean that we would be increasing by £1,171 to remove glyphosate from Flowersbrook, Eastern Garden, Steeple down Victoria Court and the Cascades, blah, 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 blah. The question mark is still really, I'm guessing this will be for other people around the table as well, is still how do we approach it in the park? So I've a couple of comments about that. Firstly, I still don't really understand how we would need to use this chemical 5 times, which gives us this increase, which gives us a total cost of £5,340. Because when those beds are planted, because this is mostly we're talking about beds here, aren't we? When the beds are planted, the gentlemen who look after the beds, they're not going to be peering underneath the leaves of the begonias and the geraniums and then spraying in between them. So I'm still not really sure that the methodology which has arrived at this £5,300 is sound. It seems a bit back of the fang packet to me. And the other thing I'd like to say about that cost is it is a great deal of money. It is a huge amount of money, and as we all know, there's a great deal of, we have a big problem with inflation. Next year, the grounds maintenance costs are going to be going up. There's almost no question about that. Do we really want to saddle them with an additional, this would be about an extra 20% of grounds maintenance costs just to proceed with this?
Okay,
Yes.
so actually I think you've done a really good overview.
So in summary, I'm looking forward to hearing what other people say.
Yes, thank you. So that's a very good overview, and it's given us 1 or 2 points that other people might like to take up. The cost versus the efficacy and the choice of the product. So would someone else like to give us their view, please? Thank you, Councillor Lucas.
Well, you're right, cost is the issue. I mean, I think it was very cheap. We'd be signing this off and passing on to the next item. But, and the work that O'Connor's does for the council directly, I agree that that's a reasonable sum to change their way of working. But I totally challenge the 5,000 in the park. I think it's ridiculous. I mean, we know that the beds are sprayed once before the bedding plants are put in. How on earth you've got it to be 5 times? I just don't know. It's just nonsense. And so therefore that must be challenged.
Could Town Clerk wishes to actually, I think he has some information on these costings.
Thank you. A couple of things on the park. My view and view of past Town Council's decisions is that the park is one of the ornamental areas and is therefore excluded from the current decision to ban glyphosate use there. So it doesn't necessarily arise at all. It's also, of course, a matter for the Isle of Wight Council and not for us at this particular time, because the grounds maintenance of the park is dealt with under a contract between the Isle of Wight Council and John O'Connor. My point I made in the paper, of course, is that if the Isle of Wight Council agreed to change, any subsequent costs they would expect to be met by the Town Council. On the issue of 5 times, my colleague Alison checked specifically at my request with Stan Hayden as to whether the 5 times was necessary, and he confirmed that it was. Alison will confirm that. So I can only tell you what we've been told.
Well, it doesn't sit with me. I just don't accept it. And I also think that if we decided that we wanted to go to this sum of money, the Isle of Wight Council would be very wrong in not allowing us to make this variation through them and their contract, even if they didn't take it up for the whole island. If we were willing to pay for it, I would be expecting the Isle of Wight Council to take that order through their contract back to Connors and us to fund it. But I don't think 5,000 is the right reasonable sum. I think it's a nonsense.
With great respect, Councillor Luke, I'd probably disagree with you a bit on that, because we are talking to people actually on the site, the professional people, we're only guessing at things really. In my personal opinion, we should go for 1,171, because we scrape out over this year's budget. Then really look at it, the park and the cascade looking to next year's budget. But we are running tight this year. I know from experience with the building work we've done, we are well over budget. I just think we should personally seriously look at it, but look at it at 2 hits. But I think I know you can question 5 times, but they are professional people, Brian. They really are like that. We're not professional others, are we? With great respect. Really.
No, but we're observers of what they do.
Yeah.
can't see it, I really don't.
Has any member of the council seen this information in writing from our contractors? Or we relying on officers to give an accurate information to members?
Carl, can you answer that, please? Because you had the discussions with the contractors.
We can obviously have discussions. First of my 2 points I offered you was that the previous discussions by the town council has specifically excluded the requirement to move away from glyphosate in both the Cascade and Ventnor Park.
Yeah, my question was, has any member seen this in writing from our contractors or relying on our officers to give members of the council fair and accurate information?
We can require it in writing.
That would be helpful. That would be very helpful. I think the members need to see it from the contractors, not from our officers. But the other thing that's peculiar, if you look at the figures, just in the sentence, is comparing B and C, the cost per application for the areas outside of the park is double. So 129 to 260, whereas in the park the cost of the application per application is treble pretty much. Which again seems peculiar even before you get onto the 5 times. And the 5 times I don't believe. It's a report written to influence a decision and not a report written to give us fair information, in my view.
May I ask for clarification?
Yes, of course.
So, given what we have already resolved, David, is it fair to say that points A, B, C, with regards to the glyphosate application on the long list of locations, that's fair compliant? That's yes, yeah. So essentially, the council is already committing itself to the increase of 1,171.
I think so.
Okay. And the other point of clarification is that if we were to move forward with the park, that would be initially that all we could do is request to the Isle of Wight Council and then see what they came back with anyway. That is the position with regard to the park, isn't it? It'd be a case of asking.
I think where we are at present.
Yeah.
Brian's right on the politics, though, isn't he? There's no way in the public arena they're going to turn us down if we're paying for it.
Councillor Bond, I wondered if I may be completely wrong here, but I'm just thinking about the difference between the areas, the 19 areas, whatever it was, compared to the park. It's a completely different thing. It's sort of like shrubbery and spot weeding in those places, whereas in the park and the Cascade, there are some bigger areas like where the bedding plants go and that, bigger areas that are covered.
More straightforward, wouldn't you?
Well, put it this way, I can see it's different. We're not comparing apples with apples. I think it's an entirely different a different situation. So we do probably need more information, and I would agree with you absolutely.
So can I just ask, have any alternatives been put forward, such as different planting?
I can't.
Sorry, have any alternatives been put forward, such as different planting or different weed suppressants?
We tried. Oh, sorry.
Sorry, no, I was going to say I was the one that. Do you remember back a year ago and a bit when we all got on our hands and knees, or a lot of us did, at the playground at North Street, and then after that we did come up with a glyphosate-free weed killer. Although it did definitely kill the leaves and the stems, I understand from O'Connor's that it doesn't get into the roots as well as glyphosate does. So that was trialled down at the paddling pool, I can say that. Councillor Tugger, was that what you were going to say? Yes, so we did trial that. But as regards other things, I don't believe there's been any other trials, unless anyone else can throw any light on that subject.
No, again, for clarification, it was that chemical that was used around the paddling pool, which is the one which is listed here as the safe alternative.
Yes,
yes,
yes, it was, yeah, glyphosate-free.
Yeah.
In fact, there is a bottle sitting upstairs on the side, which I could show you if you really would like to see it. Yeah. Yes, please, Councillor Cooper.
I'm really just going to sort of reiterate what some colleagues around the table have actually said. I think that morally and ethically, we have to be a council that's not going to use glyphosate. I have not had any emails at all from any residents saying, you know, please, can we have glyphosate? Quite the reverse, and it is an emotive subject. And I get stopped in the street and people say, how are we doing, etc., etc., etc. So I think, you know, the political will there is for us to take that decision, because it's the right decision to actually take. Do bear in mind what Councillor Toogood was saying about being an expert and a professional, and I do take that on board, and I think what Councillor Bond has actually said about requesting some more information is vital, because I read that report and I thought this is a report that's written to perhaps push you in a certain direction. I think that we do need to hear from the contractors.
It's also worth noting the report's written very carefully. If you look at 2C, it says up to 5 applications. It doesn't actually say 5 applications. And the cost is described as a potential cost, not an actual cost.
It depends on whether 5 applications are actually required.
Exactly. And if we decide to do it, we'll suddenly find that they won't be.
And for members' information, the report is based on detailed figures for each area provided in writing by the contractor.
So I don't know if anyone else has any thoughts on the subject, but as I introduced the subject, I said that it was going to be a very difficult subject. There is no simple answer. There is an ideal answer, but the way things are with budgets, with development of different chemicals, I'd like to believe that everyone in their labs is working on chemicals so that one day we will hear it on the news that it is actually banned, and then we don't have to make that decisions. It will be made for us, because many other products have gone that way. But I don't know if anyone else can add anything before we decide which way we are going to go. Yes.
If I may, I mean, going back to section 2 in paragraph A, the cascade is mentioned, and the cascade does have beds. And the cascade, if it's covered within that first tranche of spending at the lower points of 1,171, then surely that will provide a demonstration that ornamental beds can be maintained with a safe alternative at a lower cost.
I understand your point there. I don't know if anyone can clarify whether the cascade should have been in that 2A, or whether or not it should have been in the other one. Yes, I feel there might be a little bit of a question there.
And I have a feeling.
I can't answer that, I'm sorry. So I'm not quite sure really what direction we should take, apart from using Councillor Bond's suggestion that we possibly still need more information.
Well, I wasn't suggesting it for delaying a decision.
Oh no.
Because, to be honest with you, I think we took the decision effectively at our very first meeting, because every single member of the council voted in principle that there should be a ban. And members will remember at that meeting I did flag the issue of wouldn't it be wise to wait and see what the implications for us were before advocating a ban. And we were advised, I think it was Jim that advised the meeting that you were looking into alternatives, and we were assured that there was a cost-effective alternative that wouldn't cost us much to use, and the same information was given to the ASG meeting the following week. So we took the decision then, and I don't see how we can sit here and advocate that Isle of Wight Council does something and not be prepared to do it ourselves. I just don't see how that. I said that right at the beginning, and that's still the position now.
It's also perhaps the case, Chair and Councillor Bond, the decision was made at the April meeting to ban glyphosate use in the areas for which the Town Council has direct control. So that decision is already made, arguably.
Yeah, so it's just the park only then, really. I mean, we've got this moral dilemma of how much money do you put against the principle which everybody thinks is so important? 10,000, 20,000, what? You know, we could be chasing these principles forever, couldn't we? So I think whatever decision we make in terms of how important things are. The money's got to sit comfortably within our affordability. And I don't see 5,000 as sitting in with that at the moment, certainly without more exploration as to how we could bring it down. Even though I accept from the town clerk saying that we don't have direct control, we certainly have means of influencing how it's used, because we're paying for it.
Yes, Councillor Collins.
Yes, so I mean, I agree that if we went to the Isle of Wight Council and said, look, we're willing to, we've just resolved to pay up to £5,340 for this, I'm sure they would quite happily modify their methodology accordingly. However, for me, an increase of £4,984 to avoid one morning of spraying 2 weeks before the bedding plants go in, it's an unacceptable use of public money. And I don't believe that they are using glyphosate on a routine basis around the park and around the parks. I just don't see that that's a requirement. I do see that it's a requirement in the flower beds, and I know how they do it. They go there 2 weeks before they do the bedding, they spray off the weeds, they wait for them to die off, then they pop the bedding plants in. As much as everybody, I would love to see glyphosate finished completely. But this figure, at this time especially, doesn't work to pay for a principle.
Does anyone want to add anything to that? So really it's the ideal situation, but financially, possibly.
Can I suggest we speak to O'Connor's face to face and say, look, we can't afford it. It's very important to us, but we can't afford the way in which you're approaching this change, and see if we can bring it down to a more realistic figure. Because,
but I think one of the points is that all the figures are quoted are worst case. It's up to.
yeah.
Let's say let's get a median value at least.
Well, the conversation with O'Connor's was with the town clerk and assistant town clerk, so perhaps you could tell us whether you think it is worth having another conversation with the contractors to see if we can improve on these figures before we make any hard decision on the park and the cascade possibly.
Perhaps you would like to include in those discussions yourself and the chair of the Assessment Services Working Group, Councillor Lucas.
I'm comfortable with that.
Okay. I mean, the need for weed killing in the beds has gone past now, hasn't it? So we're probably talking about future use. So there's no great urgency in that.
You've taken my next point.
The time of year, the time of year. Yes. So time is on our side. So possibly, town clerk, do we need to modify the recommendation? Does someone want to make a proposal, either Councillor Bond-Lucas or Cockett?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Sorry.
I'd like to propose that we approve in the 19 areas tonight. Approve that, but actually find more information about the park area.
How does that sit with everyone?
So that's basically in the recommendation points 1 and 2.
Yes.
Yes.
Points A, B and C, yeah. So I'd actually approve those tonight, and then request more information about the park area.
Or could we go back to see if we can do a deal on both of them? Or if we're going to negotiate on one, why do we negotiate on the other one as well? Time's on our side.
I'm only thinking that if we approve that, then that's 2 times the amount we're using the alternative on that one. That's twice as much. That maybe will give us a precedent to say, well, look, we've approved that for 2 times as much. Can you do twice as much on the park as well? Which cuts that down. That's a third off of it.
I would like to point out though, really, that we don't want to end up with a less than perfect job because bear in mind that the Cascade and Ventnor Park are the subject of the competition where we are hoping to get gold this year. They are, you know, the very important places for Ventnor, and to have a lowering of a standard would not really be acceptable.
But also, we're putting forward a competition to promote wildlife and gardens, and we've seen a massive reduction in flying insects in the last year or two. It's quite recent, and to be saying one thing on one hand and doing something else is not a good look, not at all. So I'd go with 1 and 2 personally, and request a meeting.
Thank you, Councillor Watkins. I think that's the general consensus.
I think just to add to it, I mean, I agree with all that's been said and what we're determined to finally conclude on. But by going with the 19, at least it will provide evidence to the contractor about the efficiency of its use, because I suspect it's an unknown quantity. They haven't really tried it, and they don't know what the success is. If we've got the evidence from working on those as suggested in Part A and B, the 19 areas, then that's strength to argue what we should be doing further with tackling the park in the future. As already been said, we're past the time for doing it this year. We'll get the evidence from the other areas, we'll have a more detailed breakdown, plus the discussions with the contractor, and then decide on a better plan for next year in the park. That's why we...
Chair, can I just remind members of the existing decision which was taken at the April meeting, and says that the Town Council will unanimously resolve to ban glyphosate use on non-ornamental areas with a view to undertake costings of ceasing its use everywhere. So for me, the decision to ban glyphosate on those areas has been made, and now you've got the cost. Then I'm just asking you with this resolution to actually formally approve the cost of those areas only, and as the chair suggests, we can return to the park after further discussions with the contractor.
Is that acceptable to everyone?
Yes.
Yes.
Except we've still got the issue that 2C is written as a maximum cost, which is the point Dave made. It's not written as the actual cost. No. It says up to 5. If you don't need the 5, then the cost will be lower, won't it? Yeah. And if we're saying at this time of year we haven't got a problem because there aren't any applications, I'm not quite sure how they're going to squeeze the 5 applications into the year anyway, because you're going to do 1 in the spring before you start. You might do 1 in the autumn once, you know, 1,000. When are the other 3 going to be?
This will come out of the discussion.
Yeah, you don't put, you know, come out in mid-winter,
yeah, once it's all part of the discussion, I think it's something to be explored.
So is everyone comfortable with that then, that we are going with the recommendations as 1 and 2, and it is just 3 that is being modified, as I see it at the bottom? Yes. Yeah. Oh, can I have a proposal for that, please? Councillor Logan, and seconded Councillor Cockett.
Yeah, I'll have to say,
right.
yeah.
Sorry, I'm just a little behind, yes.
That's fine.
Right, well, thank you very much, everyone, because I know that a lot of us feel quite passionate about this and we can't all agree, but it's something that we have to be honest and just give our views and hope that everyone's listening and that we get the right result for the town. That's all that really matters. And so now we come to item number 9, which is the town clerk's report.
Just 6 items I've recorded here. Most of you will be aware of already, so this is for the record. The community pantry in Ventnor is now open, and a wonderful job has been done by those involved in developing it, including support from some members of the council directly, and Morrison's lending staff to assist with the preparations. So all went well on the 30th of May for the formal opening, and it's now in business. The Platinum Jubilee tree planting, I'm told by the mayor, went very well. You are happy with that?
Except for the shower of rain that we had exactly at 3 o'clock. As any of you, the umbrella was not for show in the pictures. It rained.
You still need some water in that tree because it's looking dry already.
Is it really? Truly?
Yeah, I'm sure the gardener will
Well,
be
when
up
you're
for it,
walking through the park,
it's not the sort of
council,
water it needs.
please tell Andy.
I thought you were going to mention the dog.
No, no, please, yes, tell the dog to avoid the tree. But if you could ask Andy to give it some TLC,
Confident Andy will make sure.
I'll be very grateful. Thank you.
The Wellbeing Cafe Jubilee Party was also a success, thanks to Jackie and her team, and Terry and her team all went really well. It was afternoon fun, that was it, John? The party?
Yeah, it's very good. And Nigel, of course. Is,
And Nigel, yes.
Long distance searching.
Thank you. The bee safety team is up and running, and the 2 new staff are settled in very well. And Brian Roberts, the manager of the team, reports lots of favourable comments from people using the beach about having a team in place, including one comment from someone who said it's good to see the town council spending money on proper things.
As opposed to improper.
Yeah, proper.
The children's games are down safely and being much used, and the dates of the working groups for the record. Thank you.
Could I just ask a question on item 1, because it doesn't quite scan in my head. Item A says the Baby Box team had completed an amazing job of reorganising the floor space to accommodate their now 2 separate, thanks to areas or operations. Yeah, so
That's Baby Box and
yeah, just so I understand that.
country are separate,
Right, okay.
and have been well separated.
Right, thanks.
Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you very much, everyone. So we have come to the end of this meeting. Thank you for your input, thank you for your time. I think we've got through things quite quickly. So hopefully you read the little note that Town Clerk sent with your meeting agenda to ask you. It's really to help me see what's going on in Ventnor. I think here we have an extremely diverse, extremely talented and skilled set of people. And I think a lot of people are doing a lot of good works, but other people don't necessarily know about those good works. Now, it's not to give, gold stars or brownie points or anything. It's a case of if we work together, there might be somebody else that could help with that. So I know myself what I've done, and I've managed to have quite a lot of people come in and help me. But I'm sure that others have got things that they've done in the last year. So we're just over a year into the 4-year vision that Stephen had a year ago. It seems like longer, doesn't it? However, we are now into our next year. So I wondered if everyone